Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I am Uzma Jaffrey. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Friday, the 26th of April. Indian Prime Minister Modi files nomination as he seeks a second term. Sri Lankan President urges unity among political parties. And UN officials say solution to Rohingya refugee problem lies with Myanmar. And now for all the details. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday filed his nomination papers in Varanasi city of India's northern Uttar Pradesh province, hoping to hold on to the seat for a second time in India's general election. Varanasi was one of the two seats that Modi fought and won at the last election in 2014.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday filed his nomination papers in Varanasi city of India's northern Uttar Pradesh province, hoping to hold on to the seat for a second time in India's general election. Varanasi was one of the two seats that Modi fought and won at the last election in 2014. He has so far chosen to represent Varanasi in Parliament and is not likely to pursue any other seat. With around 1.7 million voters, Varanasi will go to the polls on May 19th. After filing his nominations, the Prime Minister urged voters to exercise their franchise to strengthen democracy.
3 चरण हुए हैं, बाकी जो भी मतदान बाकी है, सभी चरण में बहुत ही शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से एक लोकतंत्र के उत्सव के रूप में हमारे देश के मतदाता मतदान करें.
Early on Thursday, Prime Minister Modi took out a mega road show in Varanasi in a huge show of strength by his ruling Bharatiya Janata Party or BJP. Surrounded by thousands of supporters, Modi bowed to the crowd with folded hands from an elevated podium. He then toured the city in an SUV, standing to greet supporters through the sunroof. The country's 39-day staggered general election from April 11th to May 19th has neared its midpoint, with votes due to be counted on May 23rd. At the end of his roadshow, Modi also participated in a holy Hindu ritual on the banks of the river Ganges.
In news from Pakistan, Pakistani customs officials on Thursday destroyed narcotics and other smuggled contraband worth $21 million, including a historic amount of a compound used to make heroin. Pakistan is a major conduit for drugs flowing out of its western neighbor, Afghanistan, which is the world's largest producer of heroin.
Pakistan destroyed narcotics and other smuggled contraband worth $21 million on Thursday, officials said, including a historic amount of a compound used to make heroin. 9 tons of narcotics and 21.7 tons of acetic anhydride was set on fire at the destruction ceremony on the outskirts of Karachi. Another 60,000 bottles of contraband liquor and cans of beer seized by the authorities during the year were crushed by a bulldozer. Acetic anhydride is used to process morphine into heroin and is subject to international control because of its critical role in the manufacture of heroin.
लिकर है तकरीबन 60,000 मुख्तलिफ मुखैर बोतलें जो कि स्मगल करने की कोशिश की गई. इसमें एक हिस्टोरिक केस है जो कि 21.7 टन एसिटिक एनहाइड्राइड का था. एसिटिक एनहाइड्राइड से हेरोइन बनती है जो कि इंतहाई मुज़र सेहत और नारकोटिक कॉन्ट्राबैंड की मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में यूज़ होती है. और आप समझ लें कि तकरीबन 1 टन एसिटिक एनहाइड्राइड से लगभग 500 टन के करीब हेरोइन बनती है.
The ceremony was originally intended to be held on January 26th on International Customs Day, but was deferred due to unknown reasons.
Envoys from the US, China and Russia discussed Afghan peace in Moscow earlier this week. This was the 6th meeting between the envoys, which talked about peace as the main agenda and that the war in Afghanistan should end now.
A trilateral meeting of special envoys from the United States, China and the Russian Federation was recently held in Moscow on the issue of peace in Afghanistan. US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad, who met his Chinese and Russian counterparts in Moscow later in a tweet, said that the US expects the Taliban to agree on a ceasefire and help make this year of peace in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Afghanistan's acting Foreign Minister Salahuddin Rabbani said Kabul hopes that the efforts for peace in Afghanistan will lead to the creation of a powerful consensus.
اجندای ازی نشست و پروسه صلح افغانستان است و ما از تلاش‌های قدرت‌های منطقه و بین المللی در آوردن صلح و ثبات در افغانستان استقبال می‌کنیم و مطمئن هستیم که نتیجه این نشست‌ها یک ایجاد یک اجماع بین المللی قوی بین المللی و منطقه‌ای شود.
The three envoys are expected to issue a declaration after the summit. It was the sixth meeting between the envoys from Russia, US and China on the issue of peace in Afghanistan.
More on news from Afghanistan. Scores of Afghan women on Thursday gathered to raise their concern on the peace process in the country. They called on the warring factions to reverse their previous decisions on military plans and instead engage into discussion for an immediate ceasefire.
Hundreds of women in Afghan capital Kabul gathered on Thursday calling on the warring factions to reverse their previous decisions on military plans and instead engage into the discussion for an immediate ceasefire. Addressing the gathering, Chairperson of Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commissioner AIHRC Seema Samar said there is a need for confidence building between the warring sides to achieve a breakthrough in the peace process. The call for a ceasefire came as Afghans experienced a short-term ceasefire between the Afghan government and the Taliban last June.
مصارف مالی را که برای جنگ مصرف میکنیم بر تداوی مریضای توبرکلوز خود. مصرف میکنیم بر ایجاد مکاتب بهتر. مصرف میکنیم برای تربیت معلم بهتر که نسل آینده افغانستان را تربیت بکنه.
Meanwhile, women's rights activists persuaded both the Afghan government and the Taliban to cancel their so-called security operations and instead work on forging consensus on a ceasefire. They added even they are ready to talk to the Taliban in any venue the Taliban chooses inside the country.
In news from Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena urged all party leaders on Thursday to put political differences aside and bring the country back to normalcy post the Easter Sunday's bombings. In a meeting attended by all political party leaders, Sirisena said the country was working with at least 7 other nations to track down the suspects.
Sri Lanka's President Maithripala Sirisena urged all party leaders on Thursday to put political differences aside and bring the country back to normalcy. Suicide bomb attacks on 3 churches and 4 hotels on Easter Sunday that killed at least 359 people exposed significant intelligence failure, undermining security cooperation in the country. In a meeting attended by all political party leaders, President Sirisena said the country was working with at least 7 other nations to track down the suspects.
ආරක්ෂක හමුදා ශක්තිමත් කරලා සාමාන්‍ය ජන ජීවිතය යථාවත් කරන්න ජනතාවට නිදහසේ සතුටින් ජීවත් වෙන පරිසරයක් හදන්න ඔබ අප සියලු දෙනාම එකට එකතු වෙලා මේ ප්‍රශ්නයට මුහුණ දෙමු කියලා මම ඊටාම ගෞරවයෙන් ඔබ සියලු දෙනාගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ.
Meanwhile, Sri Lankan police on Thursday released pictures of several key suspects as a manhunt continued across the island nation. Over 70 suspects had been detained so far for cautioning across Colombo, the police said. More people, including foreigners, were cautioned overnight as domestic and international authorities investigated deeper into the bombings, believed to have been the deadliest such attack claimed by the Islamic State.
Moving on to news from Bangladesh. UN officials on Thursday met government ministers in Bangladesh with hopes of finding a solution to the ongoing Rohingya refugee crisis in the country. They said the solution to Rohingya refugee problem lies clearly with Myanmar.
United Nations officials on Thursday met government ministers in Bangladesh with hopes of finding a solution to the ongoing Rohingya refugee crisis in the country. UN officials said the purpose of the visit was to review the situation of the refugees as well as the situation of host communities in Bangladesh. Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh are at risk of landslides in the coming monsoon season, Bangladesh's foreign minister said, and the government wants to move 100,000 Rohingya sheltered in cramped camps in Cox's Bazar district to the remote island known as Bhashan Char.
We came here to express the solidarity of the United Nations and the international community for the people and the government of Bangladesh that is bearing the main responsibility in this response to assure both people and government that we will continue to work on solutions for this situation, and the solution lies clearly in Myanmar, where we are engaged.
More than 700,000 Rohingya fled a sweeping army crackdown in Myanmar's Rakhine province in 2017, launched in response to Rohingya insurgent attacks on the security forces. Myanmar has denied almost all allegations of atrocities made by refugees during what it says was a legitimate counter-terrorism operation by its security forces.
The makers of traditional knife known as khukuri in India's northern Dehradun city are hoping to expand their business by exporting their products abroad. The small knife with a curve is renowned for being used as a weapon by the Gorkha regiment of the Indian Army.
The makers of traditional knife known as khukri in Dehradun city in India's northern Uttarakhand province are hoping to expand their business by exporting their products abroad. The demand for indigenously made knives was always high in the Indian Army, but now the sellers have started getting orders from some foreign clients also, and they wish to increase the numbers. A khukri seller Vikas said that exporting their products to other countries would be profitable and a matter of pride for them.
हमारा एक वेपन जो भी है, जैसे कि हम ट्रेडिशनली गोरखा वेपन्स बोलते हैं, वो अदर कास्ट अदर कोई भी दूसरी कंट्री में लेता है, वो तो हमारे सम्मान की बात है। वो तो हम भी उस चीज़ को रिगार्ड करेंगे कि हम भी ये चाहेंगे अच्छा बना के दे उन्हें, और हम तो यही कोशिश करेंगे चाहे यूएस हो, चाहे ब्रिटेन हो, चाहे अदर कोई भी यूरोपियन कंट्री हो, वहाँ और भी ले जाए।
Khukri is a traditional weapon associated with the Gorkha regiment of the Indian Army. The small knife with a curve is used both as a tool and a weapon by the soldiers.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. Indian Prime Minister Modi files nomination as he seeks a second term. Sri Lankan President urges unity among political parties. And UN officials say solution to Rohingya refugee problem lies with Myanmar. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time next week. Have a great weekend. Good night.